about Michael Jordan like LeBron James is in the same sentence as him.
Now, LeBron ain't had a nemesis because the league changed. Got a little softer. Your definition of a nemesis was for Jordan.
The LeBron James lifetime deal, the Steph Curry lifetime deal, the Kevin Durant lifetime deal, all was birthed with Michael Jordan.
What he ultimately developed over the years, Jordan came into the league with an assassin.
Few debates in sports ignite as much passion as a never-ending battle between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. It isn't just a conversation, it's a cultural divide, a generational fault line, and a debate that has spilled far beyond basketball courts into barbershops, classrooms, television sets, and social media timelines. Every voice seems to weigh in. Analysts who build careers on dissecting the game, fans who grew up idolizing one player or the other, and even former athletes who once lived through the intensity of NBA competition. Everyone has an opinion, but not every opinion carries equal weight. That's why, when Stephen A. Smith speaks on the matter, the basketball world pays close attention. Stephen A. isn't simply a commentator. He isn't tossing outtakes to stir up drama. He has spent decades covering the league, watching players up close, traveling with teams, and speaking directly with the legends of the game. His perspective carries the credibility of both a journalist and a witness. And in his judgment, the gap between Michael Jordan and LeBron James isn't fuzzy or up for casual interpretation. It is crystal clear. He frames the discussion with precision, and his reasoning unfolds through 7 pivotal points that, in his mind, seal Jordan's status as the ultimate standard. The first point Stephen A. highlights is critical: the unanimous respect Jordan commanded among his peers. The players who lined up across from him, the men who endured his competitiveness firsthand, weren't caught in debates about who was best. To them, there was no real question. Jordan wasn't just the best player on the floor. He was in a category by himself. Opponents didn't talk about whether they could surpass him. They measured themselves against him, knowing he was a bar they'd likely never clear. That overwhelming consensus is what separates Jordan. Stephen A. stresses this because it matters deeply in historical debates. Analysts today can sit at a desk and trade statistics back and forth, but numbers without context only tell part of the story. The truest test of greatness comes from those who felt the weight of it. The defenders who tried to contain Jordan's mid-range fadeaway and failed. The rivals who watched championships slip through their fingers because he refused to lose. The teammates who saw his relentless drive in practice and then watched him carry that same energy into every playoff game. Their testimony isn't speculation, it's lived reality. When those voices collectively say Jordan stood apart, it defines an era more convincingly than any spreadsheet ever could. Now compare that with LeBron. The admiration for him is enormous. He is widely recognized as one of the most complete and versatile players the sport has ever seen. But the conversation around him is fragmented. Some are quick to crown him the GOAT. Others carefully hedge, pointing to his finals losses, his different career path, or his tendency to form super teams as reason for caution. With LeBron, there's always a qualifier, always a counterbalance in the argument. With Jordan, there was none of that. No hedging, no hesitation, no but what if. He was spoken of with a level of reverence that was nearly universal. He didn't just hold the top spot in the rankings. He was a ranking. He was a benchmark, the measuring stick by which every other player's greatness was judged, and that is why Stephen A. begins his case here. It isn't just about stats or trophies. It's about how the greatest competitors of his generation saw him. For them, there wasn't a debate. There wasn't an argument to be had. Jordan's throne was firmly his, and everyone else was simply fighting for position beneath him. That foundation matters. Because if the players who lived through it, those who put their reputations, contracts, and legacies on the line against Jordan, unanimously viewed him as untouchable, then it sets the stage for everything else. Jordan wasn't merely great. He was universally acknowledged as a standard of greatness itself.
Anybody that played in that era would tell you there could not possibly be another option because Michael Jordan was head and shoulders above them all.
Stephen A. Smith doesn't simply rest his case on respect from Jordan's peers. He pushes further, turning the spotlight on the very foundation of the debate itself. He asks a question that cuts through all the noise. How did LeBron James even enter this conversation on equal footing with Michael Jordan? Now, let's be clear. Stephen A. isn't throwing shade at LeBron. He respects the man. He praises his greatness. He acknowledges his consistency, his longevity, and his extraordinary ability to dominate the league across 2 decades. But respect for LeBron doesn't erase the confusion Stephen A. feels about how we as a basketball culture weigh the scales of greatness. And to him, something has shifted, something that doesn't add up. For decades, greatness in the NBA was judged not just by what you achieved, but how you achieved it. The story mattered as much as the stats. And when you examine Michael Jordan's story, the case is overwhelming. Jordan didn't just rack up numbers. He authored legendary moments that redefined pressure. 6 trips to the finals, 6 victories, 6 finals MVPs. Each time the stage grew brighter, he shined harder. Each time the stakes escalated, he delivered. There was no room for collapse, no excuses, no almosts. Jordan's legacy was built on perfection when it mattered most. LeBron, on the other hand, has given us brilliance. There's no question. He has produced unforgettable highlights. The block in 2016, dragging the Cavaliers back from a 3-1 hole. His triple-doubles in must-win games. His ability to adapt across eras and styles. But woven into that tapestry of greatness are moments Stephen A. cannot ignore. Moments that expose the difference between dominance and durability. The most glaring? The 2011 finals against the Dallas Mavericks. Stephen A. That series wasn't just a stumble. It was a collapse. LeBron James, in his prime, with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh at his side, entered the series as the overwhelming favorite. And yet, when the lights were hottest, when the crown was his for the taking, LeBron disappeared. His numbers fell. His confidence wavered. His performance was described by many as one of the most disappointing final showings from a superstar in NBA history. And here's the critical point. Michael Jordan never had that moment. Never. He faced adversity. He faced dynasties. He faced bruising defenses that wanted to break him. And yet, on the ultimate stage, he never melted. Stephen A.'s question is bigger than just Jordan versus LeBron. It's about the standard we use to judge greatness. Somewhere along the way, the conversation shifted. Longevity became a crown in itself. Accumulated statistics, career totals, and sheer endurance started to weigh more heavily than short bursts of unchallenged dominance. But should they? Should 20 years of excellence outweigh 10 years of flawless supremacy? Should durability alone be enough to put LeBron beside Jordan's name? Stephen A. challenges us, the audience, the fans, the analysts, to think critically about what we are rewarding. Are we honoring consistency at the expense of killer instinct? Are we celebrating numbers on a page instead of the fear a player instills in his opponents? Because with Jordan, there was no blurred line. His reign wasn't debated in real time. His dominance was so absolute that nobody dared question it. He didn't just sit on the throne. He defined the throne. He made it clear that the measure of greatness wasn't about simply being great for a long time. It was about seizing every defining moment and never letting go. And that's why Stephen A. raises a question. Not to diminish LeBron, but to remind us of what made Jordan untouchable. For him, the debate feels forced because Jordan's command was so overwhelming that placing LeBron beside him doesn't reflect equality. It reflects a shift in how we grade greatness to Stephen A.'s eyes. Jordan isn't just a GOAT because of rings or records. He's the GOAT because of his aura of inevitability, his refusal to lose when everything was on the line, and the fact that he turned pressure into triumph every single time. LeBron is extraordinary, yes, but Jordan was inevitable. And inevitability, Stephen A. argues, is the highest form of greatness.
How is it that you talk about Michael Jordan like LeBron James is in the same sentence as him?
One of the strongest and most overlooked pillars of Michael Jordan's case for greatness, as Stephen A. Smith passionately explains, is the way he finished his basketball journey with no regrets, no loose ends, and no lingering what ifs. When you look at Jordan's career, it feels like the perfect arc of competitive fulfillment. Every ounce of drive, every possession, every season was approached with one purpose: domination. Jordan didn't just play basketball, he attacked it. He squeezed everything out of his body and mind, leaving no room for second guessing. When he finally walked away, he left the game as a man who had completely written his story. 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, 6 appearances on the NBA's biggest stage, and not a single defeat. That, to Stephen A., represents closure in its purest form. Of course, this doesn't mean Jordan's path was smooth. He suffered crushing playoff defeats early in his career. The Detroit Pistons bad boys pushed him to his physical and emotional limits, handing him repeated heartbreak. He endured the sting of elimination, the doubt of whether his style of play could truly win it all. Then came the baseball hiatus, a decision that left many wondering whether the greatest player in the world was walking away too soon. But here's the difference. Every one of those setbacks became fuel. Every stumble was followed by correction. When Jordan returned, he didn't just add to his resume, he authored a second three-peat, wiping away any notion of unfinished business to SO when Jordan finally stepped away. He did so without baggage. There were no regrets tied to competitiveness. No haunting finals losses. No questions about what could have been. He had faced every challenge, answered every critic, and climbed the mountain 6 times without ever being knocked down at the summit. That kind of pristine finality is rare in sports, and Stephen A. argues it sets Jordan apart from every other superstar who has come after him. Now contrast that with LeBron James. His legacy, while undeniably historic, is filled with crossroads that invite questions and hypotheticals. What if he had never left Cleveland the first time? What if the decision never happened, and he had brought multiple rings to his hometown right away? What if the Miami Heat, with their not 2, not 3, not 4 promise, had delivered on the dynasty they predicted? What if his return to Cleveland had produced more than just one iconic championship? What if his Lakers tenure had yielded more dominance instead of seasons cut short by injury and roster turmoil? LeBron's story, for all its greatness, has threads that feel unfinished, roads left unexplored, outcomes left unfulfilled. And his finals record reflects that vulnerability. 4 wins, but 6 losses. 10 appearances, but 10 reminders that for every triumph, there was also failure. That record leaves space for regret in a way Jordan's does not. To Stephen A. This is a key difference. Greatness is not only about what you achieve, but about how cleanly you write your legacy. Jordan's book is closed. The ending is sharp, definitive, and without contradiction. LeBron's is still being written, but already marked by questions that will never disappear.